So here we are. Hey, it's good to be back. I mean, I've been gone. I was in Orlando, if you haven't noticed. I mean, you can always go to Emil Amok or at youtube.com/ hashtag Emil Amok 1. I think that's it. And you can see my show. And you can say, hey, where is he? He's not live. But here I'm live now. Thank you for being here with me. It's Emil Amok, Emil Amok's Takeout, my takes on all things considerable. Yeah, I've been in Orlando the last couple weeks. Can you be in Orlando for 10, 15 days? Yeah, I was there. Let me say this about Orlando. Orlando is, I keep thinking of Orlando Cepeda. You know, or if you don't follow baseball and have 60s baseball players in your head, maybe you're thinking about another Orlando, maybe Orlando Furioso, maybe you are. I think that's Handle, right? Orlando. And now there's Furiosa. Is that an Orlando? The movie. Anyway, Orlando is really a great city, and they've built it for the next 50 years, meaning now's the time to go to Orlando because Orlando feels like, hey, there's no traffic now. Well, sometimes there is. Sometimes there's traffic. You know, like they'll put up a cone and they'll put up, every time there was traffic, it was because they did some work and there were people doing work, and that's what screwed up the traffic. But for the most part, you can go from anywhere in the city, say from Disney, from what they call the attractions, go from anywhere in the attractions to the main part or the downtown part of the city in about 25 minutes. I think it was, yeah, and there's no problem. There's no problem. It's really a traffic free compared to the traffic that we experience in California or the traffic we experience in New York. It is made for maximum traffic, saying 50 years. So it has some room to grow. That means now is the time to go to Orlando. And the Orlando Chamber of Commerce didn't pay me to say this, but it really is a nice, big little city. Now, Miami has its exciting moments and exciting points, its beauty, but it's crowded. And I don't know, I never felt really comfortable in Miami. But there's something about cities in Florida like Jacksonville and cities in Florida like Orlando that make me say, hey, this would be a great place to live if it weren't for the damn politics. I mean, that always is a thing. Now, if I could just sequester politics, sequester myself from the conservative politics that's going on there in Florida, I can maybe deal with Orlando. I can even deal. I figured out how to deal with the humidity, how to deal with the heat. It's not really that bad. I mean, it was very hot, and I still looked like a guy who had just gotten into town, meaning I had too many clothes. So even at the end of my stay, I looked like a guy with too many clothes, and I was all right with it. I was all right with Orlando. So I'm kind of an Orlando booster, although ultimately I'm sticking with California because California is just a better social climate for people like me. I mean, I just get that feeling. Although Orlando is a red or a blue part of a essentially red state, and people will tell me that, and I bumped into some great people who were activists, who are out there doing what they can for blue causes. But that's in Orlando. They're sadly outnumbered everywhere else. But I like Orlando, and I want to mention it. If you're visiting, I'd never abandoned Disneyland out here in California. But I think the last time I went to Disneyland was when my kids were in their teens, and that's a long time ago. And I have no desire to go to Disneyland. And I was like maybe a mile away from the attractions down there in Orlando, and I had no desire to go to, uh, Disney World or any of the other parks that Disney has down there. But I really love to visit the downtown area of Orlando, which is, around that West Church Street area. Great. The downtown area, great. Around Mills Avenue, I think it's called. Great Asian restaurants out there. It's a great area. I mean, very diverse enough. I mean, it's not California. Well, one thing it has over California, it's got black people. I mean, this is the thing about California. California, it's Hispanics, Asians, and then blacks. I mean, really a very small black population in California. But in Florida, you have a rich African American community. You have a rich Latino community. I mean, it's weird because the Latinos in California tend to be Mexican, right? In Orlando, they might be from Puerto Rico. Most were from Venezuela and South America. It was so diverse. And I know that when we communicated to one another at stores and whatnot, when I was a consumer and they were like, running the shop, I know we communicated every third word or every third idea was communicated. But we got along. And so it's wonderfully diverse in a different way in Florida than it is in California. But ultimately, the politics determine everything, and I just can't help but think about the busing episodes, right, where they were busing people from checkpoints in Florida to to Cape Cod. Remember that when that happened a couple of years ago? I can't understand that. And DeSantis is now the governor who was once thought worthy of being king, is now kissing the ring of the man who could be the first convicted ex-president of the United States. Who knows how that's going to play out? But DeSantis is sucking up to that guy, and so it's not great for blue folks in that big red state. So it's a nice place to visit. I don't know if I live there. Things like the Orlando Fringe are vestiges of an Orlando that is exciting and positive and vibrant, and I was glad to be part of it. I was very glad to be part of the Orlando Fringe Festival. I didn't sell as many tickets as I'd hoped. You are at a slight disadvantage if people don't know you. But here's the thing. I was at the Orlando Fringe Festival in 2018, and then because of COVID, was knocked out, various things. They canceled the Fringe. This is my first Orlando Fringe since 2018. And I had a core group of audience members, like maybe 4 or 5, and they were at my shows. And so if there was no COVID and I got in, I got in at least 2 or 3 of the years since 2018. Man, I would have had an audience, a core audience of at least 20 people who would be coming to see me. And that's how you build up an audience. But what's good about the Orlando Fringe is that you meet all the fringe artists, international, national. I met up with John Bennett, who I met in 2018. We were in the same venue, the Blue venue. He's gotten married. He's become an American. He's an Australian. It was great to see him. I saw my good friend Martin Dockery. I call him good friend now because we've been to enough fringes. I swear, I was in a poetry slam with him, and he just beat me out for the finals. And he came up to me afterwards and said, "Emil, I thought for sure you deserve to be in," because I had just given a bang up job of a poem that I'd written. That's part of my new show, by the way, Emil Amok's Emil Amok Lost NPR host. But so Martin and I have bonded. I've had him on. He's one of the great fringe artists, solo artists. Well, forget fringe. One of the great theater artists out there right now, working in this form. And he did a wonderful thing. He did Stakeout, which is the 2-person play that he does. um, which was great. I saw that, but he does this other thing. This it's a 24-hour breakout, I think, a 24-hour escape. I forget the exact name, but he started at 2 p.m. On a Saturday and finished at 2 p.m. on Sunday for 24 hours. I mean, it's pretty incredible. And it had the feel of let's see, some people compared it to an Escher painting. I would compare it in terms of music to a Ravel's Bolero, because it's repetitive and it goes off in different areas. And it was like a Beckett Mamet type piece with a time machine. So now you had the thing that set you back in time, and it just kept going and over for 24 hours. I saw the first hour, and then I came back for the last hour and a half, 2 hours. So I saw about 2.5 or 3 hours. Had I stuck with it, they actually, he confessed that in the wee hours, his voice was shot, and members in the audience had to come up and start repeating the show also to keep it going. I was dead to the world by then, asleep in my hotel. But no, it was great meeting the artists like that, artists like Susan Jeremy, a New York comic. A lot of these artists I met in New York at the New York Fringe, because they go from festival to festival. And then there's Shane and his partner Vulva Vavoom. God, now that's the thing. When you have a moniker that is so good that you don't even bother with her real name anymore. Oh, yeah, that's Vulva. Hey, Vulva, what's going on, Vulva? And of course, she was the one who introduced trans mask or trans masculine into my vocabulary. Her show I saw, well, I met her in New York at the New York Fringe. I couldn't get to see her show because of some time restrictions I had. But I saw her show, and it was great. She's a wonderful performer. She's based out of Tampa. If you have a chance to see the Trans Masculine Cabaret, go see it. And her partner Shane does a show about it's a pantomime, a masturbatory pantomime. Oh, no, I'm screwing it up. By the way, if you find Vulva, you'll find Shane. They're separable, and they're great artists, and they were great friends at the Fringe. And it was great. It was great to see some of those people and to make new friends. There was a guy named Mihai from Romania. He was great. He was a Romanian stand-up comic from Berlin. And then Edu Diaz, who I met in New York, he did A Drag is Born. I misspoke and called it Born to be a Drag. No, that's me. That's me, Born to be a Drag. No, he did A Drag is Born, which is, he's from the Canary Islands, and he has this, he communicates without words. He's a clown. It's not pantomime, but it's clown. So I've been looking at clown things and drag things, and boy, what a show. Edu Diaz's A Drag is Born. It won an award there at the Orlando Fringe. And so I had a good time. I finally came back. I had to come home. I was ready to come home, but I still have these memories about Orlando and about performance. And I'm going to hit the stage tonight somewhere, go to some open mic, just to get the practice, because now that you've done some shows, you're ready to do it somewhere. I mean, you're just, like a horse, just chomping at the bit. And so I'm probably going to do an open mic tonight, and I probably will announce a show that I will do sometime in June or July in the San Francisco Bay Area, somewhere in Northern California, just because just because, because you got to do it. And fringes are fine, but I think the offshoots, the one-offs that you do at once a weekend somewhere in a town to a group close by, those are good too. So that's sort of in the offering for my summer. God, we're in June already. Anyway, so I'm back in San Francisco, in the Bay Area, and thinking about Orlando. And really, if you want a town that feels like it's got 20 to 30 years of growth before it really maxes out, you ought to check out. You ought to check out Orlando, and just go there to see Disney. I mean, that's the thing about Orlando. Orlando is a city. It's like a big little city. I don't even know how many people they have. A basketball team. They don't have a football team. I guess they have to root for like Tampa or Miami. They have soccer. They're big in soccer. And the biggest virtue is it's the blue part of the red state, which says something for it. Anyway, thank you Orlando, thank you Fringe. More about the Fringe as I think of it. Although my last show, I'm going to write about this on the Aldef vlog and all the other places where I write about my experience. But my show is about being Filipino, about understanding my Filipino-ness in the media, in life, understanding my father, 3 generations, my father, me, my offspring. And it's really a generational show that I'm still understanding. And then, of course, there's jokes because it's 3 generations of history. You got to put some jokes in there. But it's funny how people respond, because there were some members of the LGBTQ community. They came up afterwards and they just gave me a hug. They loved the show. There were members of the African American community who came up to me and said, "Hey, so you know about colorism?" And you know what that is. It's not about your ethnicity. It's not about your race. It's about how dark you are versus other people. And a woman came up to me and said, "Yeah, well, you know about color, don't you?" And we talked, and we swapped stories, and it's fascinating. The lesson is that through storytelling, there is a better way to understand each other. I mean, that's why we do this, right? That's why we do this. I mean, I don't expect everyone to understand or to, be fascinated by the Filipino American story that I tell. But what happens is people listen to other people's stories, their empathy rises, and they see the common ground that we have. And so the value of story isn't that, oh, I was entertained or I was informed. The value is, oh, I see how much in common we have with each other. And that's kind of a beautiful thing in this kind of divided world, huh? So much for the Orlando Fringe. More later. I'll be writing about it in all the places where I write: the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund, the Philippine Inquirer, INQUIRER, and in the Oakland Post, the venerable Oakland Post. So watch for it there. And now, shall we go to the thing that everyone is talking about? I don't know if everyone's talking about it, but I know that when I left, the trial began, and they were picking the jury, or the trial actually was beginning 2 weeks ago, and I had one eye open. I mean, this is one thing about going away to a Fringe festival. I it's not that I was distracted, but I was paying attention to what was going on in the Trump trial, because this is going to be the only trial probably that we're going to have, because there's that Judge Eileen Cannon, the federal judge who's holding up the documents trial. So that federal case is being held up. There's a case, a January 6th case, that's being held up by the Supreme Court. So that's probably not going to be heard, although it should be. It could be heard in Washington, D.C. And then we have this case, which is going to be the only one. And thank goodness Alvin Bragg brought it, because it was simple enough. But even the simple cases are complicated, right? And as I have said in my columns, I think it's pretty clear. I mean, we're waiting for the jury, and the jury has asked for all sorts of things. They've asked for the David Pecker, the National Enquirer testimony about that meeting in 2015 in August between Pecker and Michael Cohen, which is actually a good sign, because it says that, hey, they're looking at, this is where the issue goes to the felony, because we know it's a misdemeanor to falsify documents, but the misdemeanor becomes a felony when it's tied to another crime. And if the other crime is the federal election or something that has to do with the federal election, either denying people knowledge of something that is relevant to a federal election, or campaign finance contributions to a federal campaign, those are all federal felonies, then that's how you get a major case out of something that might seem very minimal to some people out there. It's not minimal when you consider David Pecker's testimony that, yes, the National Enquirer and Catch and Kill, that was part of the campaign. Part of the campaign. And then when you consider that, okay, they got Stormy Daniels, they had the Access Hollywood tape come out, and Trump was upset that one more salacious thing out there about him, and his campaign was sunk. So he did what he had to do, and he authorized Michael Cohen to do it. Pay off Stormy Daniels. Michael Cohen took money from his home equity loan, paid $130,000 to Stormy Daniels, and then said, okay, I'm going to get it back. I'm going to get reimbursed. The paperwork's there. It says reimbursement. It doesn't say legal fees. Trump wants to say it's legal fees, but that's a lie. That's falsification. So now we have the lie, which for falsification of a document should be a misdemeanor, but it's tied to why did he want to do it? Because he did not want Stormy Daniels' news, her story out there. He didn't want people to know that he had this night with Stormy Daniels. And so Donald Trump signed those checks. He signed those. He knew. Now, I'm just wondering if there's going to be a juror saying, "Can we hear Hope Hicks's testimony again? Can we hear Hope Hicks, the person who was loyal to Trump and revered Trump? Could we hear her testimony and how she cried because she had to tell the truth about Donald Trump?" I mean, Hope Hicks is, compared to Michael Cohen, she's pristine, and she's a Trump friend, and she told the truth. And I would think that if I was on the jury, that testimony by Hope Hicks would tell me that was the truth. Hope Hicks was telling me the truth, that Donald Trump told her that he knew about the Stormy arrangement. Donald Trump knew that the $130,000 wasn't for legal fees. It was for a a cover-up. And 130,000 really technically is a campaign donation, which is over and above what an individual can give to a campaign. So you got another violation right there. So I think it is hard for me to think that Donald Trump is going to get out of this without being convicted on something. He's going to be convicted. And it's not for closing his eyes in court. He's going to be convicted for a felony. That's my way of viewing the evidence. Of course, no one really knows. And everything we're getting is secondhand from people inside the courtroom telling reporters who are telling us. And that's why we need cameras in the courtroom, right? You know, what's really incredible is that if you are an American, you owe it to yourself to watch even these secondhand proceedings, to follow, to understand them. Because you'll see what's at stake in 2024. As an American, you'll see why this is important. It is so important because there are some people who view this and see nothing is wrong and see that Donald Trump, of course, should be president. Of course, he's the Republican standard bearer. He is the next president. And I'm just thinking, if he was saying that he was going to be dictator on day one before going through all the things he's going through now, if he somehow gets convicted and is able to run again, although I don't know, if he's convicted, I know he'd appeal. Would he be able to run on appeal? That's the question. I think that if he's convicted, he would give up some rights. He would have to serve some jail time. He'd have to, maybe not 4 years, which is what some of the infractions that are in play involve. But certainly for being unofficially a good guy, unofficially not sent to jail for anything, unofficially not caught, he might get 6 months, 4 to 6 months, which is, I think that's what he's looking at. I mean, if Peter Navarro, if all his buddies for, thumbing their nose at Congress at subpoenas are getting 4 months, I think he'd be proud. I think he'd see it as his Martha Stewart moment. Hey, yeah, I'll go to jail. I'll go to jail. Anyway, history. This is history. This is what happens when you get people of this character, because it's a character thing, running for office. And I would suggest that we should just all, as Americans, say, this is not a man who is fit to be president again. He was fit once. He was elected. He showed he could not play well with others in a democracy. He would not leave the sandbox alone. He said, it's my sandbox. I'm not leaving. And people believed him. Yes, the election was stolen. The election was not stolen. But look at what Trump's actions do. They have eroded our faith in everything in our democracy, to the point where every branch of government has been infected. From the Supreme Court, you got Justice Alito, who threw his wife under the bus again. Again, he threw his wife under the bus for a flag that revealed his affiliations, let's say, that are not exactly, indicative of fairness and justice, but a real alignment with pro-January 6 folks, with pro-MAGA folks. which makes everything that Alito do suspect, which makes Alito really a prime candidate to be removed from the high court, or at least to have him recuse himself from January 6th type of issues that come before the court. Same with Clarence Thomas. That the brilliant reporting done by ProPublica helped let people know that, yeah, that should be the case. But has he budged? No, he's hung in there. In the meantime, look at how people's view of the court has dropped. So you got the court dropping in its public esteem. We have the executive branch dropping in its public esteem. We have the House. The House dropping in public esteem. We have, all of Congress, right? So all three branches, legislative, judiciary, executive branch. We've got the fourth estate, the media even, right? Well, the media's always been under attack. And then you have people attacking, whether or not elections are real or whether or not the elections are valid. And that you can blame on the misuse and misapplication, or it's not really a misapplication, it's the intended use by people who want America to fail. The use of social media, which has replaced real media, to just make everyone doubt what's true. So this is the sad state that we're in. I don't know how we get ourselves out of it, but one thing that we should do is, regardless of what the jury says about Donald Trump, we should recognize that this is just one of many legal entanglements he has. He's got 91 other felony counts, criminal counts against him that he has to deal with. I think these are just 34 that he's dealing with in New York. We should just understand that he is not fit to be president of our great country, the leader of the free world. He is not fit for that, regardless of what the jury says. So let's see. I don't know how long it's going to take. Some people say, well, today's Wednesday. People have gone home. They'll come back tomorrow and deliberate, the jury. Maybe by Friday, we'll have a verdict. And maybe tomorrow we'll have some fireworks, like the so-called Allen charge, I think it's called, where some people can't get to unanimity, and the judge then directs them to get to unanimity. See what charges you can find unanimity and what charges you can't. And so we might have a split vote. He might be guilty of some and not of others. Unfortunately, he's still convicted. And I think, in my mind, that would disqualify you. I mean, it's not a matter of he's worried about Stormy Daniels, Donald Trump. He should be worried about his actions to cover up that, because it reveals the kind of person he is, this guy who wants to be leader of the free world again. I think he had his shot. That's good. He doesn't need to be president again. He should just deal with his legal entanglements, because after this, they will be pretty significant still. Unless politically someone bails him out and says, hey, well, let's throw out, Judge Eileen Cannon in Florida is trying her damnedest to slow up that trial and just get rid of that trial. Ultimately, she could, and that would be a travesty. But this is another way that people have lost faith in America, lost faith in our democracy. So I'm watching, I'm listening to the analysts. I'm listening to what could happen and followed my own timeline, a timeline of my own making of what has been said. And as I said, I just don't know how Donald Trump wriggles out of this. The Pecker statements, the Hope Hicks crying, the documents from Weisselberg. It doesn't matter that Weisselberg didn't testify. And then Trump signing of the checks. Michael Cohen, is he such a bad guy? He's such a bad guy, Donald Trump hired him to do his dirty work. I just don't think that just calling Michael Cohen the gloat, the greatest liar of all time, somehow diminishes anything he says. And even if it did, enough of what he says is corroborated elsewhere that Michael Cohen doesn't matter, because Michael Cohen is not on trial. So we'll wait. I mean, we'll stew about the Trump case till tomorrow morning. But I know if I was a juror, that's I'm just sharing with you my thinking. It's not too far-fetched. It's not blue, it's not red, it's just honest and real. And I didn't go to law school, but high school debate, and in high school debate, it's sort of like mini trials. And you go through all the issues, like whether or not you can say something and whether or not it's admissible. You say it, then you strike it, but it's heard. You can't unhear it. I mean, these are old saws in argument and debate that have been discussed for years. And people still use them. People still use those tactics, even though they know that it's kind of out of bounds, but they do it anyway. So it's just kind of interesting. And I know the best debaters, I wasn't one of the best debaters, but the best debaters in my school went on to become big-time lawyers, big-time litigators. And I could see why. But I was always one of the blustery guys. I was always one of the guys like, who I don't want to say I was like Todd Blanche, because I mean he got blustery a couple of times, but when you get blustery, you got nothing. You got nothing. So the blusteriest, the most blustery of all the lawyers, I think, were the Trump lawyers, because they had nothing. And then they had to do things to show Donald Trump that, oh yeah, I got your back. We're going to be blustery just like you. I don't think it really worked for Trump. And he had a good line about how not even Mother Teresa could escape these charges. I mean, I know Mother Teresa's a saint. So I guess what would you call that? False equivalency? Donald Trump is not a saint, is not a saint. So the other story I want to talk about this Scotty Scheffler story, because it kind of bothered me that Scotty Scheffler that the charges against the world's top golfer were dropped after the arrest outside of the PGA Championship. And you'll recall, the coverage when he was handcuffed and arrested was big. But here's the lead. Criminal charges against Scotty Scheffler have been dismissed, ending a legal saga that began with images of the world's top golfer being arrested and handcuffed in Louisville during the PGA Championship. Jefferson County Attorney Miles O'Connell asked the judge Wednesday afternoon to drop the 4 charges against Scheffler, who was not required to be in the courtroom. The prosecutor said Scheffler's explanation that he had a misunderstanding with police directing traffic was corroborated by the evidence. Quote, based upon the totality of the evidence, my office cannot move forward in the prosecution of the charges filed against Mr. Scheffler, O'Connell said during the short hearing. Scheffler said in an Instagram post Wednesday that his May 17th arrest and jailing was an unfortunate misunderstanding during a chaotic decision. Quote, I wish to put this incident behind me and I hope the officer will do the same. Police officers have a difficult job and I hold them in high regard, Scheffler said. Scheffler had been charged with a felony for assaulting a police officer with his vehicle, along with 3 misdemeanors. The arresting officer, Detective Brian Gillis, was outside the gate of Valhalla Golf Course directing traffic after a pedestrian death when he encountered Scheffler. Video of Scheffler in handcuffs being escorted by police quickly spread on the internet, followed by a mugshot of Scheffler. O'Connell said Wednesday that his office thoroughly reviewed evidence in the case before deciding to dismiss charges. Quote, the evidence we reviewed supports the conclusion that Detective Gillis was concerned for public safety at the scene when he initiated contact. However, Mr. Scheffler's actions and the evidence surrounding their exchange during this misunderstanding do not satisfy the elements of any criminal offenses. Wow. At the beginning, it showed that the cop was being dragged by Scheffler. Scheffler wasn't paying attention. More from the story. Scheffler was not aware there had been a pedestrian death, and several PGA marked vehicles like Scheffler's were able to enter the course without a problem, O'Connell said. But a passenger bus attempting to enter was halted and told to turn around. Gillis was on the scene, stopping vehicles so the bus would have room to pivot, and Scheffler's car was among the first to reach the point where Gillis was stopping traffic. So wrong place, wrong time, it sounds like. Gillis said a police report that Scheffler then refused to comply and accelerated forward, dragging Gillis to the ground. Gillis said his uniform pants were damaged in this fall and he was taken to the hospital for his injuries. This is a key thing. Keep in mind this, and a surveillance video released by Louisville police last week showed Gillis pursuing Scheffler's vehicle on foot and stopping him from entering the course. Scheffler is later pulled from the car and cuffed, but the video did not show Gillis's first contact with Scheffler, authorities said. Gillis has been disciplined for not activating his body-worn camera during the arrest. We are. Hey, we're back. I don't know what happened there. It would seem that we had a little momentary, we call like a little an interruption, shall we call it? It was a interruption, and so let's we get the music going. Yeah, I don't know what happened, folks. So sometimes this happens, and we. But as I was saying about Scotty Scheffler, ask yourself if Scotty Scheffler was a person of color. Number one, would they have been so eager to drop the charges? What if Scotty Scheffler was not number one? What if Scotty Scheffler was not white? I think what this shows you is there is white golf privilege. And that's what Scotty Scheffler got. I mean, the white cop, Gillis, has been disciplined for not activating his body-worn camera. And that was bad. But Gillis wrote that Scheffler had demanded to be let in the golf course. And it was enough to put the golfer in jail for resisting arrest. Then he returned and finished the second round, or the first round, the start of the golf tournament. But then someone said eyewitnesses said that the officer was not dragged by the client's car. So that was the evidence that came out that the officer was dragged, which would show that Scheffler was not paying attention or was not listening to the cops. And then Scheffler's attorney said the more evidence that comes out, the more it shows that Scotty was a victim here. And I think everyone sees something like this happen and realizes they're one wrong turn from going to jail themselves. Oh, yeah, unless you're a person of color. I assure you that if Scotty Scheffler was not big white champion golfer, they would have thrown the book at him, especially in a place like Kentucky. If it was someone like me, and if I put up a thing, hey, look, I'm the world's shortest Filipino golfer. I got my tee time. You got to let me in. And they would say, no, sorry. And would say, oh, come on, Emil, you're making something up here. Well, yes and no, but, it sort of did happen in Orlando. And there was a guy who was the head of the venue. And, everything was cool, but I was able to go in once, but the second time I went out and I wanted to get back in. Second time, the guy said, no, you can't get in until like 20 minutes before, and you're like 25 minutes. I said, what's the big deal? I'm like the first show. It's like, and they insisted on the rules, and they had this BS thing like, oh, well, if I do it for you, I got to do it for everybody. No, you don't. You just have to deal with the situation now. But there are people who are such sticklers for the rules, they become authoritarian. And believe me, there was no leniency toward me. But there was leniency in Kentucky when it came to Scotty Scheffler. And why? Just because of the evidence, or because he was the champion and because he was white? I'm just putting out the questions because I think that's what happened. If it were a black golfer or a person of color, unknown, unranked, well, he had to be ranked to play in the PGA, but not top 50. I think you can, the PGA tournament, you can be. I think you have some amateurs playing in the PGA. Amateur, they play as amateurs and they win. I've heard some of those kind of stories, but you just have to be a member of the PGA. And I'm just saying, Scotty Scheffler, he's blessed to be number one. It's good to be number one in white. That's the lesson from the Scotty Scheffler golf episode. Sad, but sad. but true. Okay. Uh, I guess that's it. I mean, I don't know why we had this little episode where things just all of a sudden like just went off. I'm glad to be back in California, and I'm glad, you know, I I was traveling on Memorial Day, and here's something that gets me, and this is something about rental cars. I mean, are you renting a car where you're going? And you know how, well, if you have comprehensive and collision insurance, you don't have to get the rental car company's rental car. But I want to tell you about this instance that happened to me because I never heard of this before at all. Because usually when they say, "Do you want our insurance?" and you say, "No, no, thanks," and you don't take it. Okay. If you have insurance, usually you're good. But usually you're good based on your deductibles. And they'll say, "Look, we'll give you zero deductible." Makes you think, oh, maybe I should take their insurance because I don't want to be stuck with $500 or $1,000 deductible. But I said, no, I'm a good driver. I'm going to stick with mine. I've got $500 deductible. I'll be okay. But then they have this other insurance, business expense insurance. So if you're in a, you got to pay for the insurance. If you're in a crash and they can't use that car, the business loss, you got to pay for business expense insurance. Now, I know about insurance. It's one of the things I've studied. And I know that there's business expense insurance and business loss insurance, but I've never heard a rental car company pass on the cost of that to the consumer, especially if it's not used. That's a funny thing. So it cost me an extra $15 a day. Oh, and then they have this other crazy thing. They have so many toll roads. You don't have to take the toll roads, but they don't tell you that. You may only take like one or two, and the total charge might be under $10. But they'll charge you $10 to $15 a day just to have the toll pass and money in it and take care of all your tolls as a convenience. And frankly, it's kind of the thing that you'd want to do because, you just don't want to hassle with that. But then suddenly the cheap car rental that I had that seemed like, oh my God, I'm getting this for under $30. Suddenly it's it's almost double, almost triple. I mean, it became very expensive. And then I thought, well, if I just Ubered everywhere or Lyfted everywhere, that would be an expense. And it was nice to have a car when I was it's a car culture place, right? You need a car. But I want to warn you, if you go to cheap rental car places that lowball you on the price of the car, decent car, but then they get you on those insurance and the baloney with the tolls. And the toll roads are actually pretty nice, but I used them maybe less than a dozen times, less than 6 times. It was a way to get over on me. But in general, let's see. Was there good food there in Orlando? Someone asked. I don't know. I mostly ate cheap because I was spending for other things, and there was nothing that really enticed me. Although there was one Chinese restaurant that had a great presentation for dim sum and pea sprouts. I'm a big Asian pea green or pea sprouts guy. And it's just, I have this, when you see Asians get together and they eat, they got their chopsticks and they get like a one leaf and they put it in their bowl of rice. I mean, that's like an Asian fantasy that I have, an Asian dining fantasy. It's a comfort idea that I have that I've replicated just eating pea pea leaves. And so I had an expensive pea leaf night in Orlando, and that's about it. The rest of the time, sandwiches, almond butter and jelly. But it was fun. It was fun being there, and I'm glad I'm back. And boy, I have my medical this week to go talk about my labs. My labs were good. My cholesterol really low, like 170. My the LDL levels are low. Triglycerides in the 60s. Vegan diet. And I'm telling you, I was not tempted to have a pizza. Was not tempted to have a hamburger. Wasn't tempted to have any meat. Did not have any meat. I'm a vegan, proud vegan. I don't mean to proselytize. I just mean to say that you easily can avoid having meat if you don't want it. I mean, if you are addicted to the taste or don't know how to prepare meals any other way, you can get all the protein. You can get everything you need. You can be full just eating plants, vegetables, and get all your nutrients. I came back and started doing more raw food, juicing, and it's been great because I realized that I had a lot of junk food too. I was eating a lot of vegan cookies. You know, Oreos are vegan. They're not great for you, but they're vegan. So I'm back in California, back in my my regular mode. Hey, if you're listening, thank you for being with me. This is what I do. I talk about my life, and hopefully some of the things that I talk about become parts of other stories that I do. I'm looking to do some shows in the Bay Area, some places near where I am in California. Maybe I'll go to some room in the Southland as well as the Bay Area. You know, small little venues, pop-ups. And if you're interested in an Emil Amok Lost NPR host Amok Monologues performance, check it out. Definitely check it out. Send me an email at amok.com or emilamok@gmail.com. And, you know, we'll see. We'll see if we can get to your town. I had a lot of fun in Orlando. Had a lot of fun in New York in March and April. And looking for like little places to go to. Now, some of my fringe friends are going the whole hog. They're going to Edinburgh. I got some friends going to Edinburgh, and bully for them. My friend Tori Scheinman is going there with her show. Mihai, the Romanian comedian, is going there. And it's great. I mean, it's an absolute great time. You're with your show. You're fringing. If you love to do it, it's heaven. And it's a lot of hard work, too. But I'm not going to do it this time. I might do it next year. I may have to be in Scotland for something, a personal thing. So maybe next year. But this year, I think we're just going to make it local, I think, and do our shows. I want to talk about, I mean, I saw some statistics about the African American community, how they're going for Trump big time. I mean, over 50 for Biden, like 80, 90%, traditional civil rights. But 18 to 50, 18 to 49, huge leap for Trump. I just don't know. Unless this is the intergenerational struggle for civil rights is what it is. Because I don't see Trump being the answer, but I saw something last night, an interview with Jerry Seinfeld. And I will talk about this tomorrow. I'll talk about this tomorrow. because I've gone over an hour and I don't want to go more than an hour, but I'll talk about it tomorrow. Thank you for being here. Emil Muck's Takeout, my takes on all things considerable. I don't post this on the website or on the podcasting websites, just because and this is my little secret that I do live, and that you can watch, and you can watch it on YouTube at Emil Muck 1. You can see it on Twitter. You can see it on. Those are the two main things. But if you want the podcast I do, Emil Muck's Takeout, is a different it's an interview show. I might revive that again. But this is what I do just to talk about the things that are in my head. Thank you for being here. I like to close with a little meditation. And maybe I'll talk tomorrow about my visit with my guru. Because everyone should have a guru. He's less guru, more yogi. He's a yogi. But I don't do yoga. I tried to do yoga with the group. Man, I lasted like 5 minutes. I'm just not into it. And so I waited for the talk, and then I went for the talk, and the talk was exactly what I needed. It helped me. Far Eastern spiritual therapy, because that's what it is. It's therapy. It's helpful. I mean, it's unlike the other European psychological therapies that kind of put you in a box and don't let you out. But the newfangled ones, the CBTs and the DBTs and all that, right? They're all based on a kind of Far Eastern sense of releasing yourself and your mind and meditation. And I'm all for that. CBT, very helpful. And just straight out meditation. That's what this one guy, my yogi, does. And it was a 2-hour pilgrimage to northern Florida. He helped me. So that was worth the trip to Florida. But basically, we closed with a little our homage to another spiritual teacher, Sharon Salzberg, who says mindfulness is when you don't punch that other guy in the face. That's mindfulness. Try to be mindful. She has this thing called metta, loving kindness. So we end with some loving kindness when we do these shows. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Check out the website, amok.com. Until next time, mahal